velocity of someone's life in a positive way. 16 years ago, I volunteered for a program in North Portland that paired at-risk youth with theater professionals. I was asked to write a play for Spree, a 9-year-old girl, a play that she and a professional actor would perform on stage together in front of a live audience, a play that dealt with her hopes, with her fears, her secrets. It reflected who she was and allowed her to be heard. And I'm here to tell you, that experience changed my life. I could see that it changed her as well. I didn't know why it had affected me the way it did, but it grabbed me deep in my guts. I didn't analyze it, but I knew that I had to keep doing that work. So 10 years ago, with a group of creative, persistent, resourceful friends, we founded PlayWrite. What is PlayWrite? Well, fundamentally, it's a process that gathers 8 young people who want to write a play with 9 coaches, highly trained, highly skilled. They spend 10 days together, 2.5 hours every day. They're working face-to-face, one-to-one, critical. The coaches ask questions, open-ended questions. Their job is to push the writers into themselves, grasp deep truths. The writers only know the questions, know the answers. Nobody else does. But the key for the coach is to ask those questions with an open heart, to listen closely. So PlayWrite focuses on youth at the edge. What's that? What are youth at the edge? Part of keeping the thing going was that I had to write grants. Writing grants, typing, here's what we do it with, blah, 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 blah. I was really disenchanted, among other things, by the banal or irritating, really, terms that were used to describe the population we worked with. Disadvantaged, at risk, underserved, marginalized. And I knew our kids didn't like them either. So I convened a bunch of them. In a room, I said, okay, you guys, here's the deal. Can you come up with something? Can you come up with a phrase that you like, that works for you, that describes you? And in a few hours, they came up, yeah, we're youth at the edge. We're youth at the edge. God, amazing. That's what they were. They were kids that were not able to thrive in the mainstream education system. It wasn't working for them. So it described them individually. It describes adolescence, the whole period of adolescence, which is clearly at the edge. And it also described art. Art comes from the edge inside the artist, from the edges of our community, of our society. It was a perfect fit all around. So we could see how PlayWrite had an impact on these kids. I wanted to know what was going on inside their brains. So let's talk a little bit about brains. When I was in school, we knew, no question about it, we knew that by the age of 6, our brains were through developing. It was all there. Every neuron we were ever going to have in our life, we had by the age of 6. You knew that, right? Huh? Isn't that what they taught you in school? Yeah. Well, in the mid-90s, fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging techniques came online, and knowledge about the brain exploded. We learned so much more. And fundamentally, we learned that the brain continues to develop throughout our lives. It slows down after our mid-20s, but it goes on all the time, so even a brain as old as mine, this one here, can actually create new neurons. Might be able to learn something. So even though they slow down, for adolescents, it's a time of great risk. You all know that. Every parent of an adolescent knows that. But it's also a time of tremendous opportunity. And that's one of the things that's really fundamental about that change in what we know about the brain. The brain's plastic. It can change. Whoops. Where's my seahorse? There's my seahorse, that guy. Whew. That seahorse helped me out. He helps all of us out. It's the hippocampus. It's that part of the brain that resides in the limbic system, which is often referred to as the emotional brain. And one of the tasks of the hippocampus is to organize emotional experiences into memories that can be laid down that we in turn can turn into narrative, into story. It helps us take the facts of our existence, of our being, and give them meaning. But sometimes things don't work that way. Sometimes the fear and terror surrounding an emotional, traumatic event can overwhelm us, and information about what happened doesn't get over to the hippocampus. It never gets a chance to do its work. In that case, our ability to understand our world and our ability to understand ourselves is impaired. For example, I'm so damn terrified now that I probably will not remember this event. I'll know it happened, but scrambled. So I'm telling you this because the youth that Playwright works with have experienced trauma, often devastating trauma. But we've all experienced trauma. As the writer Barry Lopez said, we are all wounded animals. Think of your own life. The death of a parent, a close friend, violence, neglect, betrayal, or abuse. We know now that neglect has consequences for brain development just as severe as abuse does. Now, I suspect you already know this, but I want to make it totally clear. I am not a neuroscientist. At best, I'm an amateur neuroscience geek. With that being said, let me throw caution to the winds. We think that the Playwright process is a way to help the hippocampus do its job. A way to take the heightened emotions of traumatic experience and lay them down as explicit memories. Memories that can be assembled into a story. There's a broad range of experimental evidence now from all over the world that putting feelings into words can have tremendous positive impacts on both psychological and physiological states within us, long term. And putting feelings into word is what Playwright does. It's core to what we do. And beyond that, it's absolutely vital, critical, that every single word that goes on the page during that 10-day workshop is the words of the kids. The writer is the author of every single word. And sometimes that gets really tough in the coaching deal when a kid's having a tough time coming up with a word to describe some object, a clear object. And they'll say, well, so what's the word for that? Coach has to say, I don't know. What's your word for it? Come on, man, you know what it is. Tell me. It's got to be your word. It's vital to the process. So for 8 years, we heard stories, reports, phone calls sometimes from teachers, counselors, parents saying what amazing things had happened to their kids as a result of going through this workshop. That was really comforting. I knew the stuff worked. I loved doing it. He knew it worked. It worked for me. I knew it worked for the kids. But I also knew that we needed more legitimacy. Unfortunately, in 2011, we received funding to support a research project that was designed and executed by scientists at the University of Oregon and OHSU. I want to show you some slides from that. So this slide shows changes in students who participated in Playwright workshops. That's the purple column, compared to the control groups in blue, 4 weeks after the end of the workshop. So as you can see, the taller the column, the better the outcome. Here's what the 5 sets of columns refer to. It's in psychological jargon, I'm not quite sure. So emotion symptoms, improved emotion symptoms. That's referring to anxiety, somatic complaints, and depression. Hyperactivity we all pretty much know, being restless, easily distracted. And we also know that when hyperactivity is dampened down, people make better decisions. Mood symptoms refer to withdrawal, shame, and lethargy. Anhedonia, now that's a trick word, isn't it? Anhedonia, not a hedonist. The inability to feel pleasure. And anger dysregulation, disruptive or destructive emotional expression of anger. I think for sure we all agree that regulating our anger is a good thing. So these data were derived from observers' reports. The next slide shows self-reported changes over the same period. These are changes that the kids themselves reported. And how amazing is that? Impulse control. 60%. Yeah. More than 60% that said that their ability to regulate and resist impulse was better. Huge for an adolescent. I think it's huge for all of us. I got to sometime. Okay. So let's take a look at what happens in some of the workshops. The video clips you're going to see come from Brian Lindstrom's remarkable documentary about Playwright called Writing Myself. I want to give a heartfelt thank you to him, especially to the young writers who are so vulnerable and agreed to be on camera and let you see what transpired for them. And also the coaches. They're there too, and they're a gutsy bunch. We're all family. On the first day of the Playwright workshop, we engage the kids with a lot of fun things. We do some trust games, and we have some actor demonstrations of things. So on this slide, yes. So these 4 students are watching a demonstration. And I want you to look at their faces. What? It's on my monitor. Where'd it go? Well, okay, imagine if you will. It's art, it's imagination, yeah. Thank you. Those guys are champs. I love them. So look at the faces. These 4 kids are all watching exactly the same thing happening in front of them. But they're all interpreting it in different ways. And what you see going on in their faces is what their emotional brain is doing with the information that's coming into it. They're all interpreting those situations in unique ways. On the second day, we get down to brass tacks. The rubber meets the road. That's the day when kids create their first character. It's an animal character. They create it through a visualization process. You might ask, well, how come you use non-human characters? Why don't you use human characters? We do this for the same reason that we avoid plot. If you were to use a human character, to let a kid create a human character, guaranteed that character already exists. The story's already written. It's a character that they know from their life, or they're pulling pieces of it from aunts and uncles or cousins or whatever. It's done. This process is all about finding new ways to look at old emotional information and put it together into fresh creations. You have to make it real. And when the kids create their characters, they have to give those characters the same hopes, feelings, fears, secrets that they have. That's the only way it can be real. So I want you to watch this clip of Aurora, a young writer. At the end of the day, we circle up. The coaches read the writing. And here's Lindsay reading Aurora's character sketch.
Now I weigh more than I used to, and it's more of a pull on my body. I can't really pay attention to where I'm going, too intrigued with the surroundings. I try to pay more attention, but I grew up looking for predators around me, looking around instead of where I'm going.
So could you feel Aurora's feelings when you watched that? Could you feel what she was feeling? Yeah, and the reason you could is because those feelings were true. They were what she felt. She put them into her character. If they weren't true, she'd probably be smiling and so proud of herself and, oh yeah, I wrote this cool character, but it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't connect to her. A lot about emotional states is communicated through prosody, through the way we affect our voice, our tone of voice, loudness. It's also affected by body language. To understand our character, since we know that emotional information is communicated through body language, writers have to be able to show how their characters move. That sometimes can get funny when the character's an egg beater. Or in this case, you'll see Matthew showing his coach how his character, who happens to be a Venus flytrap, moves.
Are they hands?
Grabbers.
What are they?
Grabbers.
Grabbers?
Out to the side. And he would start kind of pacing, circling a little bit, looking at the walls.
They come to know their characters deep inside them. They inhabit them. They're part of their body, part of their reality. So back for a minute to the heart of the matter, to coaching. Skillful opening, listening. We hold the question. This is funny. 99% of the times a kid is asked a question by an adult, what's the kid doing? Trying to figure out what the right answer is. What is that grown-up that's asking me this stuff? What do they want to know? What do they want me to say? At Playwright, it's not that way. The only right answer is the answer that the young child has, that the young writer has. And it's a funny barrier we have to come across because they'll say, well, you know, or I don't know. And the coach can't answer it. You're the only one who has it. It gets tough on both sides of the table. But skillful listening includes watching, as I've mentioned. So in this clip, you're going to see, I want you to pay attention to Zaid, the young writer who's struggling with a question about what is the heart conflict of his character. What is You're watching his face. You're watching the way the emotions inside of him were translated into the musculature of his face. Everything had meaning, was fraught with meaning. Now, how much time elapsed between the end of the question and the next utterance? It was about 9 or 10 seconds. In a classroom, the average time after a teacher finishes a question before he or she says something else is how long? Take a guess. Shout out a number. 3. 1.5. 1.5. Nobody can think in that amount of time. We take longer. We let it go on. And sometimes the questions take a really long time to be answered. Sometimes hours. There can be long intervals between, I don't know. You're the only one who does know. I can't do this anymore. You're driving me nuts. It's okay. Do you want to go take a short walk? Should we get a drink of water? But finally, the dam breaks. Finally, you see facial muscles relax, often tears welling in the eyes, and the words start to come. The writer is able to speak the emotional truth that lies within. It's really hard work for everybody, for coaches and for the writers. But as you'll see here, the pushing and challenge is also accompanied by support. At the end of a really hard day, Paul and Genevieve are talking.
So don't stress about it. And don't think about Playwright for 24 hours.
Okay.
Just let go.
Yeah.
You're doing great. Your emotions, your feelings are really driving this, and that means that you're doing the real work. Mm-hmm. You're being incredibly brave.
That's frustrating.
Take care of yourself tonight.
Yeah. Shake it off.
Yeah.
So from there we go to the 10th day. We're gathered for rehearsals. The fledgling playwrights are directors working with professional actors. A bond of trust has grown. Now look at Zaid telling Timothy how worried he is about what might happen at the show.
I don't know. I just
Yeah,
don't want them to be here, but they're gonna be here.
It's important that they are anyway, even if that's
Yeah,
kind of.
I've never been a
what's
part of my
going on.
family at all.
Yeah, did you tell them about the
Well,
show?
yeah, I mean, I told them about it. I thought it was only right, but I can't see them being like, "Oh yeah, dude, awesome." No, they're not.
That's a harsh outlook.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. They're gonna be here, so I have really no choice because I'm not gonna tell them no, don't come.
Yeah.
So they sit in the front row, the curtain goes up, their plays are performed, there's applause, it's over. They come back to the green room, they say their goodbyes, and depart.
Bye, thank you. You were great to watch.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was fun working with you.
Hey, my mom needs you guys' autograph.
Oh, okay. I don't have a pen. I don't have a pen. Good job.
Sure.
Where do you want us to sign it?
Signed by your
Julian.
Okay. Yeah.
Emily, definitely.
I know, because that's what the end of
Thank you.
So fear and trembling has turned into pride. The kids are artists. They've accomplished a tremendous amount. So what does it take to change someone's velocity, to help them form and forge new directions? There's no single answer, but at the intersection of playwriting and neuroscience, we think we've found important clues to that work. We've engaged more than 600 youth in Oregon. Some of them are here today. One of them is on our board of directors while he attends Portland State University. Another is a poet who has published his poetry, who's performed it in public, and has written a play that's had several performances at community colleges in the local area. A third is an amazing musician, an inspirational guy, who devotes a lot of his work to domestic violence issues. He opened for the headline act at last summer's Gay Pride Parade. So in closing, I want to offer you something and ask you something. Try this. When you ask a question, wait. Listen with an open heart and wait for the answer. The wheels are probably turning in the right direction, and I think they'll bear fruit. And here's what I want to ask. We want to make Playwright available to everybody, everywhere, around the world. You're really smart. You're creative. You're thoughtful. Do you have any idea how to help us do that? Take all the time you want.